To write a counter-argument, you need to first introduce the conflicting argument that you intend to refute in your essay. Compare these two examples. Can you tell the difference in the way the author introduces the conflicting argument? In fact, there are two more sentences here. Can you put these 4 sentences into 2 categories? Number 1 and 4 fall into the same category because both of them introduce the conflicting arguments by saying something like, some people think, or someone may argue. This is one way of doing it, to state the conflicting argument as still others' ideas. You do it this way when you don't agree with the conflicting argument at all. Sentence 2 and 3 show another way of introducing conflicting arguments. That is to make a concession. Note the author said something like, I guess it is, or it's true that. You introduce a conflicting idea this way when you partly agree with it. In spite of the differences in the way of introduction, there are some common rules we should always follow. First, don't forget to use signal words when introducing a conflicting argument. This is to indicate that the argument is not your own idea, but one that you are ready to rebut. Recall the previous 4 examples. They all have some kind of indicators, such as some people would like, some people argue, it is true that, and I guess it is. I listed some of these signal words in the attached reading material. Feel free to check it out. Another thing you should remember is that you should state the conflicting argument as briefly as possible. Why? Do you think it's a good idea to spend half of the essay telling your reader why other people disagree with you? Absolutely not. We want more space to justify our own argument. But at the same time, you should also be honest to state the conflicting argument as clearly and forcefully as possible. Are you asking why again? Why should we make the argument that goes against our own strong? Why can't we make it weak and invalid so that our argument can be comparatively strong? Think of this. You are a cool guy and you want to compare with some other men to show that you are more handsome. Who would you choose as your reference? Mr. Yue Yunpeng or Mr. Lu Han? I bet you choose the latter. So same here with making counter-arguments. If you want to show that your argument is stronger, you better refute a strong argument. One more thing about introducing conflicting arguments. When possible, you should include not only the conflicting thesis, but also its reasons and evidence. So Stephen Hawking wrote, some people would like to stop these changes and go back. This is the thesis of the conflicting argument. And he also wrote, they see the past as a purer and simpler age. This is the reason. So that's the first step of writing counter-arguments in critical essays. To introduce first the conflicting argument properly. Remember the second step? We need to then rebut it. Coming back to this example, second sentence serves that function. When someone else says the past was purer and simpler, Dr. Hawking rebuts it, saying the past was not that wonderful. Here's one more example. The author also refused the conflicting argument by saying that the jobs preserved for men are not the ones that are only physically suitable for men. There's also something you should know about the second step of writing a counterargument. First of all, signal words again. Perhaps you have noticed that in the previous two examples, both authors use but or however to show the reader, now comes the argument I want to make. Read carefully. The second technique here is that you should always tell directly what the problem is with the conflicting argument. Compare these two counterarguments. Which one do you think is more forceful? Tell me your answer. Do you think the first one better? When the author of the second passage writes, I still insist that modern world is better, without telling the reader what's wrong with the conflicting argument, we want to ask him, why do you even mention the conflicting idea if you don't refute it? You don't want to be asked this question. Then tell your reader directly why the conflicting argument is problematic. Now you may also ask, how should I rebut the conflicting argument? How do I find out the problem with it? What if I think it's a good argument? I'll answer your questions in the next section. Finally, step 3, after introducing the conflicting argument and rebutting it directly, now we need to further support our rebuttal with reasons and evidence. This is just like making an argument. So Dr. Hawking writes, it was not so bad for a privileged minority, though even they had to do without modern medicine, and childbirth was highly risky for women. This sentence gives the reader some facts about life in the past, meaning that the past was not that good. I'm sure you have learned much about how to use reasons and evidence to develop your argument, so I won't elaborate on it again.